Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime podcast. We're Gary Seath and Brad Robinson.
And you're not.
This week, we are talking about Season 3, Episode 13, with host Art Garfunkel and musical guest Stephen Bishop. This show originally aired on March 11th, 1978. Brad, as the Art Garfunkel to your Paul Simon, I was excited about this episode.
Interesting. I am the Paul Simon. I see what you've done there.
Right?
I know we all know what a fan you are, Mr. Simons. Well, fear not, Gary. I wouldn't leave you alone with just me. Very happy to have with us on this episode a guy by the name Michael Streeter. Some of you may know. Michael wrote the book Nothing Lost Forever, the Films of Tom Schiller. Michael, welcome on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
We should say, in addition to writing the book on Tom Schiller, Michael is also you're a pretty big SNL fan yourself, right? How many times have you seen the show live and in person?
I haven't seen it in like 20 years, but there was a period, like 20 to 25 years ago where I saw it. Oh, maybe 20 times or something like that. And a lot of Thursday night live episodes. Those were, I don't know, they just always gave us tickets for those. Those were easy to, if you have friends in town or family and you wanted to take them to see the show, getting them tickets to SNL is very tough, but Thursday Night Live, very easy.
Well, anybody who hasn't read Michael's book, Nothing Lost Forever, it's really cool. Not only does it talk about, the Tom Schiller feature that he made, but it does talk about Tom's career and coming on Saturday Night Live and as a writer and the Schiller's Reel, which is why we brought Michael on today, which we're going to have, I think, pretty much we all agree, the most famous, the most well-known Schiller's Reel on today's episode.
I'd say so, yeah.
I think they held it for Art Garfunkel. They must have.
I mean, I guess Art Garfunkel had a lot going on at this point, right, Brad?
I feel like this is Art hosting is like Lawrence, thank you for showing up twice unannounced on the show. Because it's like, what he has an album out, but it's an Art Garfunkel solo album. So It's not like the biggest news in the world. A new album, I should say, because it was an album that was released in the fall and did not do well. And they record a cover of Sam Cooke's Wonderful World and some re-release it like 3 months later. But but it came out in January and now is doing well. And so, but that being said, it's not a bad episode.
You liked it?
I did. I enjoyed it. No, you know?
Well, there was a lot of Art Garfunkel singing.
There was. What'd you think, Michael?
I think it's a pretty decent episode. I think there's a few sketches that were just kind of misses for me, but I think there's some really solid stuff. You got the Garfunkel singing. You've got Don't Look Back in Anger. I mean, I'd say it's one of the better episodes.
I was surprised maybe more than anything else. Like this is one I went into with very low expectations. Wasn't expecting a lot. And by the end, I actually wish, because there actually are a decent amount of sketches in the episode, as you said, even for Art Garfunkel singing 4 times and a musical guest, the wonderful Stephen Bishop.
Right.
I still wanted to see more Art Garfunkel in sketches. Like he's only in, I think, 2, but he's good in the 2 sketches he's in. I enjoyed him.
Well, okay. And we can get into that when it's not like he carries anything.
No, but it's just fun to see him. I mean, to Michael's point, there's a sketch or 2 without a host. You're like, did you need that?
Sure.
So, but I don't know. All in all, pleasantly surprised, I will say.
Good. I feel like that is the theme for this season, is when you go in hyped and excited about an episode, you're a little let down, sometimes very let down. And when you go in with low expectations, you're pleasantly surprised. So that's...
Yeah, I buy that.
All right, good. Well, should we just get into it?
Let's do it.
All right. So the cold open this week is quick and silent. So it's Modern Crimes, which is a take on Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times. And we just see Dan and John come in carrying, as 2 grave robbers, carrying a body wrapped in a carpet, I guess. And then they say Bill, who's an officer in Switzerland. We see a lot of the title cards keep coming on to, like a silent movie, tell us what's going on.
All done in silent movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, with title cards, yeah.
There was one bit where John, I guess they see Bill and then John freaks out and he mouths, "Let's get the fuck out of here." And the cue card just says, "Let's get out of here."
Yeah, you could tell. Yeah.
But then they drop the body, and it comes out. It's Gilda dressed as Charlie Chaplin's Little Tramp character. And this,
how about that drop?
Yeah, that was.
They drop the rug, and she hits and like does 3 rolls before she comes out. And I was like, way to go.
Yeah, I was like, wow, they really have her wrapped up in that rug.
Yes,
tight. It was not a loose wrap. Good for her. But this is all based on something that actually happened, right?
Yeah, Charlie Chaplin did die Christmas of the previous year. So he died in December, and it was earlier that week or a couple weeks ago, a couple weeks prior. Yeah. Two guys dug up the grave and took his coffin out and held it for ransom, trying to get money for it.
Amazing.
And then I think they caught him actually a week later. I think someone actually wrote in to the show, to Jane and Weekend Update, and had a clue and cracked the case.
Well, suddenly Gilda as Charlie Chaplin comes alive, and then we get the title card that says "Live from New York." This was a fun, quick, interesting, different open. Michael, what was your thought on this one?
I just think it's interesting that this episode, if you look at what sort of is remembered from the episode, obviously the Art Garfunkel performances, or some of his performances, but the main thing is Don't Look Back in Anger. And it's just so weird that you have that famous short that's very stylized, but the show actually opened with something that, sort of uses the same trick where, it's made to look like an old movie. So I thought that was interesting. But I think I thought it was I thought it was a cool open.
Yeah, I liked it. I agree. It was different. It was fun. I thought they used the title cards to good effect. Like Gary mentioned the joke where you see John cursing, and yet the title card is "Let's get out of here" or whatever. Yeah. And for the Live from New York was fun, and it's an interesting opening because there's no dialogue. It's all musical until the band comes in. The first voice you hear this episode is Don Pardo for the credits.
It was interesting that it was taken from current events that had happened
very current.
Just a few days, I guess like a week and a half earlier or whatever. But yeah, it was interesting.
It's funny, like an old black and white sketch can feel refreshing, but it did. It had a fun vibe to it.
And from there, we have Art come out for his monologue. And I thought it was interesting. Art comes down the steps like a traditional monologue, walks out on the stage. And I thought, he is going to give a monologue. But then he turned around, walked backwards.
No. He doesn't say a word.
Yes. That's what I was going to say. He just turns around, goes closer to the band, and then starts right in on the song.
It's like he does a pump fake. He walks up and looks for like half a second, and he like gives the audience a look, and he just turns his back on him and walks back and like starts counting in the song.
Yeah.
Waste no time.
No. I thought it was funny. Like, didn't even acknowledge the crowd.
I thought it was weird. I don't like good funny or bad funny.
No, bad funny. Weird. Like awkward.
Okay, yeah.
Awkward. Yeah,
yes, yeah. Yes, it was very awkward. I agree.
But then they sing "What a Wonderful World," the Sam Cooke tune that you said you had mentioned he had recorded that for this album. It was fine. It was nothing that I was too excited about, to be honest, for me.
Well, it's because he was off key. That's why you didn't. I mean, even he didn't like it. He had to stop the performance.
That's true. How did you feel as someone who does not like when hosts sing, but I know you have tolerance for when musicians
I was ready
sing.
for it. I was ready for it on this one, but I did think he would have said something at least. I was thrown off about the just coming in and I don't know. I was like, then why even come down the stairs?
Right.
Just fade in and be at the microphone.
Yes, that was my thought as well. Like, just be there on the stool or whatever and get right into the song. Mike, how'd you feel about the monologue from Art?
Well, there isn't much of it, right? Doesn't he get interrupted by? Was it Jane or Gilda?
Well, he stops because he gets feedback or whatever, and he says, "Hold on, let's try."
That's
and then
right.
John jumps on,
right?
And John starts complaining about the studio and the network and how they're treated like a late night show, and there's no respect. And if we were on prime time, we'd have Marshall amps and all. And so John just starts going off, and he's like, "This whole place is falling apart." And he just starts. He's playing, which we haven't seen this in a little while either. Like, complaining against the network, trying to put the show a little bit edgier, whatever. John leads him. I do like how he calls him Artie the whole time. He's like, "Artie, stick with me." And he does one where he leads up because then Art's like not really following him, or he says, it's okay, I'll deal with it, don't worry about it. And John starts going, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. And you could just see him leading up to the, but no.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the first one that actually does get a pretty good reaction from the crowd. He's done it now, like this is like the third or fourth time. I think this is finally the first one that I think the audience was kind of ready for it as too, because he does advertise it's coming pretty blatant.
Yeah. So after John has his like say and does his but no, Art kind of pushes back and is like, I think we're fine, we're okay. And John turns on him then and starts taking shots at Art Garfunkel. And he eventually leaves the stage. And then I found it awkward that Art just went right back into singing the song.
Right back into it. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was weird. Again, like I just found this whole thing to be odd.
I like the idea of like John coming out and interrupting it, but it didn't help. I don't know, that it's not a great song. Like if I didn't know the original, maybe I'd like it a little bit better, but it's not a great tune, this Art Garfunkel version.
Yeah, I don't like it either.
Even with Stephen Bishop in the back on vocals, it's just not. Well, I guess he's covering because when he recorded this, he did have friend of the pod, Paul Simon, on. And James Taylor, I think, right? The two of them were on this song when he recorded it.
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't, again, we're trying to figure out what is Art Garfunkel doing on the show. He's got an album. This is the hit of the album. So it's not that surprising that he opens up the monologue and sings it.
No. Probably not. Or no, it's not, I guess. But we had to sit through it. And then from there, we go back to a pre-tape, which we haven't had in a few weeks.
Yeah.
And this one is a repeat, the Chromega 3, which we saw earlier this season. I think it was episode 1 or 2. It was one of the first episodes of the season.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah. It's the watch where you need 3 hands to do it. It's fine. It's a fine spot. Mike, how do you like Chromega 3? Or do you like Chromega 3?
I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's not one of the classic commercials. It's. I like that they use the theme from Conan the Barbarian.
Mike, if you lead off your answer with a deep sigh, we understand you don't like it. We get it.
Yeah, I'm just not one of my favorites.
Brett, do you mean a deep sigh like after this we get the Tomorrow Show?
Who's sighing? This is right. You love this. I thought you'd be in heaven.
Sure, because it's the Tomorrow Show. You would think that. But then...
Wait, you didn't like this?
I didn't.
I think this is a great sketch.
Oh, great.
Michael, tiebreaker.
It's all right.
Damn it.
Right down the middle.
I'm taking it. I'm taking it.
I didn't say it was horrible. I said it was fine.
Yeah, and again, it's been a while since I watched this episode last week, but I haven't watched these classic shows in, like 20 years probably, but was it always this mean-spirited towards Tom Snyder?
Towards Tom.
Towards
this one?
Yeah, no, he goes right at Tom Snyder pretty much all the time.
Okay. I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah. This episode of The Tomorrow Show, Dan, as Tom Snyder, is interviewing a battered husband. So it's someone who is a battered husband and wants to keep his identity hidden so that people don't know who he is. And as the show goes on, Tom Snyder reveals more and more of his identity and then kind of tries to backpedal until you finally see the face of the guy played by Art Garfunkel, I should say, who was hard to recognize because he had a wig on.
Yep.
But yeah, I didn't feel like this one totally hit. As soon as I saw it was the Tomorrow Show, I assumed that Art Garfunkel was going to be playing himself.
I agree, and that was my first note because I was unhappy going into the sketch because I'm like, why doesn't he play Art Garfunkel? Because that's when these sketches work. Like Paul Simon did it. You get somebody. Ray Charles does it. You get somebody in again who might not be a performer, and you have them play a version of themselves with Tom Snyder.
Right.
And it works really well. So that was my first thought too, is why is he not playing Art Garfunkel?
Right. Like when Paul Simon was on, the bit that he did with Tom Snyder and Paul Simon, that worked.
Yeah.
So I was thinking we would get this, but it didn't work for me, all in all. I felt like it took too long to get to the joke. I thought the Tom Snyder parts were funny, but yeah, the battered husband piece took a long time to get there.
See, I thought the taking long is what made it good. Because, like you said, he's playing Frank, and he's completely shrouded in darkness. And when they do that first cutaway to him, and you see him in dark, you're like waiting for the lights to accidentally turn on and reveal who this is. So you know where this joke is going,
right?
And the fact that they don't do that, but they continue on with the sketch, and Dan as Tom slowly, inadvertently, stupidly reveals information.
Could you describe your wife physically?
I'd rather not give any information that could reveal my identity.
Well, would it be safe to say that she weighs less than 120 pounds?
Yes.
And you, sir, an able-bodied man. You look to be about 155, 160 pounds, 6 feet tall. My question to you, sir, is why the heck don't you just get up some morning and kick the living daylights out of her?
Well, I'm afraid that she'll withhold sex.
So she's the type of gal that'd use sex as a weapon.
Well, that's right. Sometimes she tells me to go get sex elsewhere.
Well, Frank, do you?
No.
Well, why not?
I can't.
Well, sir, you're not an unattractive man. He's got nice, delicate-looking features, a nice complexion, a birthmark there under your left eye, certainly nothing distinguishing. You mean to say you can't get some bimbo to take a roll in the hay with you?
Well, the problem is I'm impotent with women other than my wife.
Okay, let's see if we got this straight here. I'm the owner of the Strauss Construction Machinery Dealership in Bennington, Vermont. I'm sorry, you're not from Bennington, Vermont. You're from some other town entirely. And you're in the construction machinery business. And Frank, you're regularly beaten by your wife. We've established that. And believe me, husband beating is a very serious thing. This is serious. We're not fooling around here. Frank had some pictures which he showed me. I took the liberty of having one blown up. He's so battered here, you'd never recognize him.
Wait, that's my face. They'll see my face.
Well, they're seeing your face right now. No. You should have just sat there in the dark. I told you, you've blown it now. Well, might as well call you Andy. What the heck? The cat's out of the bag. It's all for the best, I guess. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you don't know what's going on here, we've been talking to Andy Strauss. He runs the Strauss Construction Machinery Dealership in Bennington, Vermont with his brother Paul. He's afraid of his wife. He cries in the dark, and he's a battered masturbator. Thank you, Andy. Thank you very much.
I don't know. I thought this was written well. I thought it was, Dan's a little bit more understated than normal as Tom Snyder. I don't know. I love this sketch. I thought it was really funny. And done.
No,
really
you've sold me, Brad. You're right. I do think I do think it's a really good sketch. Yeah. Sorry, Gary.
No, please. That's all right.
I went from sort of it's all right to the way you just explained it. No, it was pretty brilliant. Yeah.
I just thought it was a little too telegraphed. I know what you're saying. I understand. I just thought it was a little too on the nose. But that's all right.
All right.
Mike gave you the win, so there you go.
There you go.
Another guy who needs a win is Stephen Bishop. I don't know that that's true, but
oh my God,
he comes on and sings "On and On," which was from was that a new album, a recent album?
They call that the debut album, if you will.
Okay,
industry jargon for first.
Yes, and this was one of his more popular songs ever, I think, right?
Yes, that also I believe is correct.
Yeah.
I think it was like just outside of the top 10.
How do you feel about Stephen Bishop, Mike?
Not a fan. Sorry. I knew the song, and I guess I knew the song from Tootsie, but I had to look up Stephen Bishop to see what else I knew him from. This is I really don't like this song.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it would not surprise you to learn he wrote this song in an afternoon. So he says.
It took him a whole afternoon.
That long?
Yeah. The only notes I wrote down on this were why are we on an island? What's with this set?
Yeah, what a set, right?
Yeah, there's a boat.
There at the end, there's a boat. Yeah, my very last note is, wait a minute, there's a boat on this set?
Right. We pull out to see the boat, which I'm sure was not like an easy prop to get in place there. And they're just like, save that for the last 5 seconds.
At this point, I'm worried there's like 0 sketches in this episode because I'm like, they put all of their resources into the Stephen Bishop performance right here. Sand, trees.
That's what John was complaining about in the monologue. That's where all the money went.
I'm not. I don't know. I only really know Stephen Bishop really from his acting resume, and by resume I mean 7 seconds. I know him from Animal House and the Blues Brothers. God, he has a song on the Animal House soundtrack. That's actually I actually know him from being in Animal House as the guy on the stairs when John walks down in the toga.
Yep.
And he has a song, Dream Girl, on that soundtrack, which probably the worst song on that soundtrack.
Yeah. Also written in an afternoon, probably.
Probably.
He was a protege of Art Garfunkel, right? Or some kind.
Well, I was going to say, not a surprise to say, close friend of Art Garfunkel. And Steve and I did reach out to him and he answered a couple of questions. He did say he actually was friends with people on the show at the time in the cast and was hanging around. So I guess it's another one of those instances where, friend of the show in some aspect.
Oh man, I have to take back what I said about him earlier.
No, you don't.
I hope he doesn't listen.
No. Oh, trust me, he does not listen. No, he does not.
Okay, good.
No.
Do you think he and Art Garfunkel still exchange holiday cards or something?
Absolutely, because Art Garfunkel's that kind of guy. He keeps in touch.
He's a good dude. He's no Paul Simon.
No.
I don't know. I just feel like this song is right in the sweet spot of 1978. No?
I don't know if it's the sweet spot of 78. It definitely belongs in 1978, but it's not the sweet spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Let's get out of the way now, boys, because he does not come back tonight, at least to sing. Right.
He does not come back to sing. He's
How about that? Art Garfunkel nudging him out of no, you can get 1 and I'll do 4. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very Paul Simon.
I was going to say maybe there is a little Paul Simon in that Art Garfunkel.
Maybe.
Well, our next sketch does not feature our host. This sketch has Dan and Bill working at a bar. Dan's the bartender and Bill's a construction worker, I guess, hanging out at the bar. And they're bemoaning the lack of Tula Rula Rula on the jukebox for St. Patrick's Day. And my immediate thought was, they reference Chicago. We see a light flash and smoke, and John
good
enters.
Gag.
It was good.
Very,
they did a nice
very
job.
good gag. They do it twice. I thought it was very good.
And John enters as Mayor Daley, who had passed away.
You should say recently deceased Mayor Daley. Yeah, he died in
earlier this year.
76.
Oh,
no,
76.
76. He's been dead for a year.
Well, he's dead, but not in this sketch, and he's carrying a turkey. This felt to me like another recycled sketch, like a Second City sketch or something.
I had the same note because it's very Chicago, obviously.
Very Chicago.
So I'm like, who wrote this? Is this like a Brian Dole Murray sketch? Where did this come from? Because it's very Chicago. And if the fact that he didn't die so recent, I thought the same thing. This had to be a leftover from Second City. But I mean, he died so much recently.
But the rest of it works. He doesn't need to be dead for the rest of the sketch. Because he's dead,
the whole joke of this sketch is the miracle of Chicago, that the ghost of the mayor comes back and all of a sudden magically gets Torah on the jukebox.
I guess.
Don't get me wrong. This is a horrible sketch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a fan of this sketch either, but I don't know. It has one of the. It kind of has that late in the show, late night vibe. So I was kind of surprised to see it this close to the start of the show. But it's interesting that you bring up, maybe this is like a leftover Chicago or repurposed Chicago sketch, because it does sort of, start out with that sort of little stage play, like you're watching a little stage play. And that's probably how a lot of the Second City stuff would have been.
Yeah, it definitely has that construct to it of here's a little set and you have two guys talking. It feels like that's where it came from.
Yeah. Dan has an Irish accent because he's working at the Irish bar.
Did Bill start with one? I felt like I felt it and it went away in 3 lines.
Oh, I don't know.
But maybe he just never had it.
Yeah, maybe not.
All right.
No. But yeah, I didn't think that was a strong sketch.
No, it was not.
No. Aside from the light and smoke.
Light and smoke gag was good.
Yeah.
I feel they come back well with the next one, though.
Well, we get more John. This is a very John heavy show. We've seen
Maybe
him
that's
in
why I like
every
this episode.
sketch except for
Yeah.
Tomorrow's Show. Yeah. So John is working as a bouncer and Garrett as a cop outside of a Kiss concert, and they are not letting anyone in. So Lorraine comes on. Art comes on as Paul Stanley's brother, who just parachuted in from the Air Force, I think is what it was.
Yeah, he's the Air Force. Just parachuted in. Yeah.
Yeah. Jim Downey comes on as Ryan O'Neal. Stephen Bishop comes on as himself, right? He's
yeah.
Yeah. And no one's getting in. They don't let anyone in. And then finally, Dan comes out dressed as Paul Stanley, sees his brother and brings him in. And that was this bit. Mike, are you a Kiss fan?
I'm not, but I love this sketch.
Thank you.
It is, it's a little, formulaic, a little obvious, a little predictable, but I thought it was great. And we see Jim Downey, Tom Davis too, right?
Tom is Dr. Bob, the guy with the nitrous tank.
That's right. Yeah.
The first guy they let in.
Yeah.
He's on the list with a star.
Yeah. And you like this, Brad?
I like this one. This is one I like. This is a great example of getting the whole cast in, which I like. I think you saw everybody, but maybe not Gilda. And they've started doing these a little bit. And I feel like this is a good example to me of a one note premise, but it allows you to bring through a gauntlet of characters, impressions or characters, whatever. And I don't know, Gary, I was trying to remember. We see this a lot all the time now, but I feel like at this point in the show, they haven't done this where they created a sketch to do this. I think up until now, most of the time it's been like a movie parody trailer, or, there was a Jeopardy game show or the Hollywood Squares game show. But this to me, and I might be forgetting, it felt to me like this is the first time here's like an original sketch idea where it's one note. Can I get in? No. Can I get in? No. Can I get in? No. And it allows you to cycle the host, a bunch of cast members, and it had a fun feel for that you got to see everybody.
The musical
That's
guest,
what I like about it.
Yeah.
Musical guest pops in as himself. We haven't seen the musical guest cameo in a while. Like that was fun to see. I don't know. I say I liked it. There's not much to it, but I like what they did. And I think they kind of set, I don't know, to me, it almost felt like here's a little bit of here's the standard of we're going to see for the next 40 some plus years of here's this, how do we make a sketch in which we can just rotate everybody through? You did not like this episode, did you?
Me?
Yes, you.
Yeah,
you, the one who doesn't like every sketch.
I didn't dislike that sketch. It just wasn't my favorite. But it leads us into Weekend Update. And this is, we're back to Jane and Dan. I felt like they were a little bit better, getting back to better. Like they've been off for a few weeks. But this one was pretty good. There was a Orson Welles joke where they showed a picture of a giant turtle.
I thought that joke was funny. It's like the only funny joke in Update, I feel like, was the Orson Welles joke.
Yeah. They mentioned the Charlie Chaplin grave robbery in Weekend Update. And then we go to science editor Garrett Morris, who's going to show us a blood clot dissolver thing. I don't know. He kind of lost me in what was going on. And then he was going to show us what was in the microscope. And then they showed us a Mighty Mouse cartoon. The whole cartoon. Like that kept going. And I was like, oh, they're going to show the whole Mighty Mouse cartoon here. I see.
The whole Mighty Mouse thing. That's probably my type of humor. I love that. I know it's ridiculous. Most people probably think it's stupid, but I thought that was hilarious.
I liked the joke. I just was surprised how much of the cartoon they showed. That was what got me. Was like, oh, we're still showing more of this cartoon.
I like this guy. They did it before, and I think it's still funny.
Bill Murray comes on to talk as movie critic character to come on to talk to Jane Fonda about her protesting the Vietnam War.
Takes that turn where I'm going on a, he had come out saying years ago he told Jane Fonda not to mix politics and celebrity and film, and now he says I take it all back and speak politics, and I'm going to say something right now, and I don't care what you think. And he basically comes out saying the Vietnam War was a mistake.
Yeah,
whatever you think, that's what is like. Then he's Bill Murray. That's what I feel like. That's what I said.
I was going to say Bill Murray. I think Bill Murray Movie Critics is probably one of my top 5 Weekend Update correspondence. But this is not one of his best. I thought it was all right.
Yeah, it was all right.
The thing I enjoyed most about this was his segue back to Jane.
Yes,
talking about from one good looking Jane to another, something like that. It was fun. It felt good. It was a good Bill Murray. And I liked the fact it was good.
Yeah, I agree. And then it goes to Jane, and then it pulls back to Jane, and then a photo so you can see it, and you just see Dan's socked feet on the desk.
Yeah, just wide enough. I'm like, is that Dan's feet on the desk in socks?
Yeah, I also thought, is something going to happen here? They looked like kind of like glittery, like some kind of costume to me.
Yeah.
But no, it was just him with his feet on the desk.
Yep.
I thought it was going to be a character showing up or something, I don't know.
No, I thought so too, but no, it's just then when she said goodnight, then he like sat up abruptly and that was the payoff on that. Yeah, not a particularly strong Weekend Update.
They end with a rehash joke. Her last joke is about a hippo dying. And I feel like they've done these before at Weekend Update where there's like an animal in the zoo dying. It's a sad story. And then they turn it into some like Michael O'Donoghue-esque story of like something bad or doing something to a bunch of people. I felt like I've heard versions of this joke before as an exit.
Probably true. Well, as a refresher after Weekend Update, we get Art Garfunkel back. To sing
palate cleanser. I agree.
Yeah. To sing two tunes.
Not one, two.
No. So he sings All I Know and then Scarborough Fair.
Thank God we haven't heard that enough on this show.
Right. This is the third time we've heard Scarborough.
This is the third? It's definitely the second.
Yeah, maybe. I felt like it was the third, but just PTSD. More Art Garfunkel singing.
Art Garfunkel's a weird guy.
This is true.
Go on.
I'll tell you one of my Art Garfunkel stories.
Okay, good.
Well, it would make more sense if I told you this when he was doing his weird monologue. But no, my wife's late grandmother once was on an elevator with Art Garfunkel, just the two of them, and she didn't even want to say anything or make small talk. She said nothing, but right away he turned around and faced against the wall to avoid having to talk to her.
Oh my gosh, that is not surprising. That's
probably PSD from being in elevators with Paul Simon, and Paul's like, "Artie, face the wall."
The other weird thing that I can tell you about Art Garfunkel is he signs books on the front cover. Have you ever heard of anyone doing that?
No.
So I guess he cannot be bothered to open up the book and
I was
put his signature on it on the third or fourth or the title page or whatever. But it's weird because he's known to be this voracious reader. You'd think he'd be a kind of a purist about opening up the book and signing on the title page. It's just something. Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's just really bizarre. Just don't know what his thought process there is. Is it a time thing? Like he just can't be bothered. He wants to just do the autographs as quick as possible and just, I don't know.
I don't think so, because when he signs LPs, he actually pulls the record out and signs it. So
he carves into the record, into the wax.
Give me your address. I'm going to work on this and I'll send it back to you. I have nothing else to do. We should say the man has a great voice, does he not? I did not like either of these songs. I don't need to hear Scarborough Fair off the 5 different Spices album, but he does have a very good voice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm from Europe, and one of the biggest hits that he had in Western Europe was Bright Eyes, the song from Watership Down. The movie wasn't very popular there, but that song was huge in Germany and the Netherlands and England and in whatever, late 70s, early 80s, whenever that came out.
Scary, because do you know what Art Garfunkel's biggest hit was in the US? This silly song. All I Know was a top 10 hit.
Oh, really?
His only one. Yeah.
That's disappointing.
Which one? Scarborough Fair or
No. All I Know. Solo. We're talking
okay.
solo here, please.
Yeah,
solo
yeah. Okay.
Art Garfunkel.
Yeah, not when he was carrying Paul Simon.
Yeah, not that guy.
I wonder if Art signed any of the books on the bookshelf of the next segment, Looks at Books, hosted again by Jane Curtin. And this time, her guests are the nerds.
I thought you were going to say, and this time her name is actually Jane Curtin, because I was excited
That's
for
right.
Jane playing a host as herself again.
She does play herself, and Gilda and Bill come on as Lisa and Todd to promote a book that they just wrote all about their graduating high school class from 1977. And I thought this was really, like, this is the second time we've seen them in these characters, and I felt like they were really getting this down. The between the two of them, and I thought Gilda especially was getting the voice down.
Oh, wait a minute! One chapter's about this girl who got cooties. I'm just kidding.
Oh, great. That's so funny, it's not even funny. How about a noogie for that?
I saw you this morning, but my mom made me flush the toilet.
More noogies for that.
I understand that you each wrote a chapter about yourselves.
Yeah, it's all about us. And all the stuff we do and all the work we did writing the book.
Yeah, like, right. I had a lot of trouble finding everybody's phone numbers. Stop it! And anyway, this one guy wasn't listed anywhere, and I tried to phone everybody. I couldn't find his number, and I phoned his mother, and she wouldn't give it to me.
I don't blame her.
Okay, Todd LaBounta, Lisa Lupner, thank you for telling us what happened to the class of 77.
Thank you, Miss Curtin.
And thank you.
Michael, how do you feel about the nerds in general and this sketch in particular?
No, I thought it was a great sketch, and it's funny that that whole whatever happened to the class of 65. I guess that was a really popular thing. I don't know if either of you looked in. Went down the rabbit hole on that, but that was, I guess, a very popular book in, 78 or 77. And there was a TV show that they mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. It just fascinates me because it was a book about, that nostalgic look back at 12 years ago. Like, just imagine that today. It's the same thing as American Graffiti. That was like, it's 1973. Where were you in 1962? Right.
How'd you feel about this one, Brad? You didn't like this one?
It's almost like I feel like I didn't enjoy it as much for the reasons like actually Michael did. I thought Gilda was good. I thought she was good in the last one. Like I feel like she's always had the character. She's even from day one. But what I didn't like about the sketch that much like I didn't like the first time we saw them, is that they're kind of in these like unreal or just, situations like they're being interviewed on the radio. Now they're being interviewed on television. I think they play best when they're by themselves at home, like in their own surroundings or at school or, those kind of things. It's like more of a natural environment. And so I like seeing them in that a little bit more as opposed to being like something like this or something like the radio show.
But we haven't seen that yet. So you're comparing it to
that's fair
situations that have not actually happened. That have not
actually. Yes, I am. You are correct.
This is part of the evolution of the Lupners.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Well, they have names now. We got their names this episode, Lisa Lupner. And so Todd's name, actually, if you caught it, his name on this is Todd LaBounta.
Yep.
Which they change after this episode. We mentioned the first time these characters were, written by Ann Beats and Rosie Schuster. And this sketch was co-written by Franken and Davis. And they came in and they gave them the names. The Todd LaBounta is a guy they knew back in the day. And apparently this guy was going to sue either NBC or the show. So then they changed it. So on further incarnations, Todd's last name is now like DeLaMucca. They changed his name. But so yeah, like to your point of the evolution, they're getting names. We're learning more about the characters.
We're seeing the interaction between Bill and Gilda, which we didn't see the last time.
Yeah, there's more interaction because you don't have the Spaz character, or you don't have Spaz. It's just the two of them. So it is good to see it focus more on just them. It's the class. The Where Are They Now class of 77 does feel very Franken and Davis to me. I could see their fingerprints on that aspect of the sketch a bit. But all in all, it wasn't bad. But you have a good point, Gary. I'm looking at it knowing what's going to come. And I did this last time too, not looking at it just what it is, because they are good. Bill's good. Yeah. Gilda's good. I mean, he pulls her in. Granted, he's hitting his mic, but when he gives her those noogies, man, it looks like he's just pounding her.
Yeah.
And they end it. They have a very great ending where, the thank you, Miss Curtin. Yeah. And the two of them do that really well. But you're right. I am waiting for what I know is going to come. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool your jets. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
Well, from there, we go to what is, I think, undoubtedly the most memorable bit of the evening. It is...
Art Garfunkel will sing again, just so you know.
Oh, no, I'm well aware.
Okay. I'm just making sure. Okay.
That is Schiller's Reel and Don't Look Back in Anger. So, Mike, why don't you set this up for us and give us some of the history of this film?
Yeah, so Tom Schiller started doing short films, I guess, earlier this season. Is that right? This is one of his early ones, but probably his most famous one, one of his best. When he joined the show, he was an aspiring filmmaker, and but they had Albert Brooks on to do his short films, and then Gary Weiss did his short films. But the idea was always for Tom to be able to do his shorts. And so finally, he was allowed to start doing his. And I think he started in season 3. This is his third or something like that. Very early short film. But it's one of 4 star-driven shorts. I think he did about a dozen in that 77 to 80 period. And I think this is a really impressive little short. I think it's kind of gotten a reputation now because it was, very ironic and I think of all the shorts Tom has done, he did shorts in the 70s, and then he also came back to the show in the late 80s. Did a bunch more. This is one that really stands out. And the idea is that an old John Belushi at 90 was the original name of the sketch when they were making it. Visits the graves of his Saturday Night Live cast members. So there's John in makeup to make him look like an old man, riding on a train, and he arrives at this the snow-covered cemetery. It was actually snowing back then, so the snow was real, and he goes to the graves of all of his cast members, and then he dances on the graves at the end.
Yeah, they all thought I'd be the first to go. I was one of those live fast, die young, leave a good-looking corpse types, But I guess they were wrong. Here they are. All my friends. This is a not ready for prime time cemetery. On up. Yeah. Here's Gilda Radner. She had her own show on Canadian television for years and years, the Gilda Radner Show. Well, at least now I can see her on reruns. Cute as a button, God bless her. Here's where Lorraine is. They say she murdered her DJ husband. Then moved to the valley in California and had a pecan farm. She was this big when she died. Jane Curtin. She married a stockbroker, had 2 children, moved to upstate New York. She died of complications during cosmetic surgery. This is Garrett Morris. Now, Garrett left the show and worked in the Black Theater for years. And he died of an overdose of heroin. There's Bill Murray. He lived the longest, 38 years. Well, he was happy when he died, though. He just grown his mustache back. Probably still growing. Over here's Chevy Chase. He died right after his first movie with Goldie Hawn. Over here, Danny Aykroyd. I guess he loved his Harley too much. They clocked him at 175 miles an hour before the crash. It was a blur. I had to be called in to identify his body. I recognized him by his webbed toes. Well, the Saturday night show was the best experience of my life. And now they're all gone. I miss every one of them. Why me? Why did I live so long? They're all dead. I'll tell you why. Because I'm a dancer.
Yeah, I love this is one of my favorite. That's part of the reason why I wrote the book. I just think it's just a brilliant little film, and even on its own, like taking it outside of the show. So yeah, I think this. Yeah, I think this is just a brilliant little short.
I love this film. I think, and watching it again, I was trying to remember back. I'm fairly certain that this film is what really caused me to love John Belushi. This was on the Best of John Belushi VHS tape I had when I was a kid. So the first time I probably ever saw this was then. And I just remember like thinking it's so funny that he's going to the not ready for primetime cemetery and he makes all these comments about everybody. But the moment at the end, after he puts the wreath down on Dan and he's like, why did I outlive them all? Why am I the last one? And he kind of looks up and he gives that look with his eye. And then he says, because I'm a dancer, and starts. I think it's like the best. Like that right there is what cemented that I was like, I fell in love with John Belushi at that time watching this as a kid. And yeah. I just, sketch film aside, I think it's one of my most favorite bits of this entire era, sketch or whatnot film. It's so good. I think John is fantastic in it. Like as an old man, like I really noticed it when you saw him walking towards the grave. I mean, we think about John, like Mr. Energy, right? Mr. Bull in the China Shop. And he does it sounds like it's something easy, but he does a really great job, like walking slow as an old decrepit man and really just, and the whole thing is restrained. And, even the dancing part at the end, when he drops the cane and dances, it's really, really done. And the other thing I love about it too, and you mentioned, they shot this a couple days after Blizzard or whatever, is the fact that this cemetery is just covered in snow in a black and white film. Just the visuals of this film are it's amazing. And, he's got the dark coat and the dark hat. So everything's either white or black, basically, like dark or white. And it's just done so well. So good.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's funny you mentioned the VHS. I interviewed Judy Belushi, who just passed away recently. Yeah. She was really nice and really helpful. And she, whoever put out that original VHS tape, they tried to talk her out of include. I guess she had a say in what was being included in the compilation. They tried to talk her out of including this short. it's just like the perfect short to it doesn't encapsulate his comedic talents, but it really, I don't know, it's just brilliant, and just thinking of not having that short in a best of Belushi bit is it's crazy to think of that. Yeah,
That's really short-sighted on their part, because he was not just a comedian, right? Like, he was an actor. He wanted to be an actor and known as an actor, that's someone that could carry more dramatic pieces. And so to have this, and I think, is essential. And also, what would Brad do with his life if he never saw this?
he'd have a lot more time on his hands.
Yeah. No, I was going to say the same thing. Like, it's such because it shows that side of him, especially as, later John Belushi, it shows that other side of what he can do. And I think it's a great, encapsulation when you do include it in the whole body of work. It's great.
Yeah. Another fun fact about the short is that initially Tom Schiller was part of it. They actually filmed him as an interviewer on the train, and that just sort of got cut out, and there were some more funny lines that between John and him answering these questions, and I think that's all in the script that you can see at the end of the book in the appendix.
Yeah, it's a shame they didn't make this longer and let it run longer on the show, because I think it's so brilliant, and I think, like a lot of Schiller's reels, it's just so well done. It's very impressive.
No, you're right, Gary. And I mean, it's no surprise. And we mentioned Michael's book from time to time. We keep, mentioning the shorts, but the name of Michael's book is called Nothing Lost Forever, which is in the reference of the Tom Schiller's movie, Nothing Lasts Forever. I'm Michael. I mean, that's like an episode in itself, but I mean, you want to tell people just a couple minutes, Michael, about that movie and what it was? Because, at the end of season 5, when everybody leaves, Tom Schiller does try to make a feature film, or he does make a feature film, I should say.
Yeah. So when the show, sort of ended, 1980, or at least for the original cast and for Lorne signed a movie deal and had some of the writers develop scripts. And so Franken and Davis worked on the script for a couple of years. Don Novello was writing something, and it was Lorne and John Head were writing an adaptation of one of his favorite books, and so they were all like developing these films at Broadway Video, and like nothing was ready to move into production. So except for Tom's script, which was kind of a somewhat low budget thing that all of the cast would be in. All the cast: John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and Bill Murray. And so Lorne was able to say, here's a script that's ready to go. And so they made that, and it's basically a feature length Schiller's reel. That's how you can look at it. It's with Zach Galligan from Gremlins. Before he did Gremlins, plays sort of a version of Tom in a weird fantasy version of real life, set in New York, and about a young man who wants to become an artist, and has sort of a bunch of surreal experiences. And the movie, they made the movie. John Belushi was supposed to be in it. He passed away very shortly before it came, before it started production. So while making it, a lot of people were sort of grieving in the grieving process still. And that's kind of one of those things that it's mentioned in the book, and it's confirmed by, Judy Belushi and Tom and everyone else, that was supposed to be John Belushi's next movie. He wouldn't have been in it all that much. but he wasn't the lead. But yet, whenever you hear about the movies that John Belushi didn't make, it's always about Noble Rot or Joy of Sex. But no, actually, Nothing Lasts Forever was supposed to be his next film. And the movie was made, and then MGM United Artists, with whom Lorne had his big movie contract. They were they had some huge financial issues, and the movie never came out, and none of the other movies got made. And that was so it was. It's not like Lorne, wasted a couple years of his life. He did a few other things during that time, but he sort of learned a lot of lessons from that whole process, and then it sort of went a bit better after that with Three Amigos, and then obviously a successful film career after that, film producing career after that. But yeah, so Nothing Lasts Forever was the only movie made from that deal, and it was never released. At least not. It didn't have a proper release. It had like a 1 week release in like Seattle and in like Phoenix or something.
Well, back to the show, as it were. We get Andy Kaufman back. I forget.
I feel like you were gonna. I feel like you would have liked this, but the way you're going, Gary, I'm worried to guess that you'd like this performance.
I love this performance.
Yes, all right.
This is a classic Andy Kaufman bit. So he comes out.
Number 8, by the way. Sorry,
8.
Number
okay.
8. You were asking.
No,
yeah.
I thank you. He comes out and he starts talking to the audience with a British accent about how he wants to be real. And so he's not going to do the foreign man voice, and he's not going to do his American voice, which is funny.
Not going to do Andy and sing Farmer in the Dell.
Yeah, yeah. And he's going to do something special. And so he tells them that he's going to read them The Great Gatsby, which is something that Andy Kaufman did in clubs at this time, especially if he was getting heckled and people weren't buying his shtick, as it were. He would just start reading The Great Gatsby, and there are stories of entire shows, rooms of people just walking out of his shows because he's reading The Great Gatsby. But he does that in this bit, and there's still the record player there, and he starts then interacting with the audience when he gets some booze on this, and eventually he's like,
Lauren walks out. We get a Lauren sighting.
That's right. Lauren walks out and whispers something in his ear and then walks away.
Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to continue reading. Okay. If personality is an... I won't then. All right. What do you want me to do? All right. Good. Only Gatsby, the man. If personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, then there was something gorgeous about it. What? All right. That is it. I have been asked to leave, ladies and gentlemen. I have been asked to leave, and I resent it. I was told I could take all the time I want, and now they asked me to leave. Well, all right. I was going to read you the book, and then I was going to play you the music record. But that's it. You don't want it? Then fine. I won't even do that. No, you don't want the record either, do you? Right, fine. All right. How many people want the record? How many people want the record? All right. Do you really want the record? Yeah. Do you really want the record? Or would you rather that I leave? All right. I'll do the record. But first the book. All right. You want the record? Yeah. You want the record? All right. They'll have the record. Then we'll have... No. All right. Oh, enough is enough. All right. Only Gatsby at the band.
I think this is brilliant. I love Andy Kaufman. Mike, how do you feel about Andy Kaufman and this bit?
Yeah, I love this bit in the British character, and yeah, when Man on the Moon, shortly before Man on the Moon came out, they started putting out a lot of material about Kaufman. A lot of his. There was a book about him, and some of his specials were being released, and his own books that he wrote were published then at that time. And I just devoured everything I could find about him, and so I'm a huge fan, and I think this is a great sketch. I do wonder how there's a few things with Kaufman where I just wonder how did that really happen? Like, did he actually do this character for that long that people were walking out of the comedy club? I want to see some receipts.
yeah, I get it.
I get it. I mean, I think like anything, there's a bit of truth. I mean, I think this is a great bit. It's one of the most infamous bits he has. I think it's great. I think it's so smart. I mean, it's a phrase we've used a lot, and I always use it when we're talking about him, but it's like the commitment to the bit is amazing. And like, it's on full display with this. This is what really, and I didn't realize it till the end of his bit. He starts it by playing the record player. And there's some music on the record player, some type of song. It's almost like Mighty Mouse. So you're envisioning him going to do like a Mighty Mouse routine. But so he starts his routine with that audio, right? By the time he goes to that record and he goes, okay, fine, I'll do a record. Like the audience has already heard music from the record player. So the fact that he goes and plays the record player and it kicks into the reading of the book, it just, to me, puts this whole bit on another level of genius, of how to, of setup and delivery and all that kind of stuff. And then, it's and that's why I feel like, it's a classic. I feel you could see in his routine, which I think normally would have, moved on to something else. But again, then to Gary's point, I could also see if he's failing, he just goes right back to the book and reads for 20 minutes or whatever. Genius bit. So good.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Another genius performance I think we see is Gilda as a little girl playing with dolls. And this time it's part of a live commercial for Mr. Goodbar Sleepy Time playset.
Looking for Mr. Goodbar.
Oh, sorry. Looking for. Yes. Thank you. So Bill is doing the voiceover of this, and it's just Gilda alone in a room with a dollhouse and a few dolls. And she hears the voiceover of Bill, and he's telling her what to do. Things like, take your Diane Keaton doll.
Take your Diane Keaton doll to the singles bar.
And like, she's making the dolls kiss, and then they're drinking, what is it, Tequila Sunrise, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just the whole bit is, I thought, very funny. And I thought Gilda was absolutely brilliant again as this little girl character and playing with dolls.
Have you guys seen Looking for Mr. Goodbar?
If I have, it's been 20 years since I've seen it. If I can't remember it.
How about you, Gary?
I have not. No.
Okay. Because I don't want to say like you're missing out, but it is a very, very dark movie. And that just adds to just how twisted this sketch is. It is. I love this bit. I thought it was brilliant. It is the movie is kind of lost to time. It's Diane Keaton and Richard Gere, and I think it was a very popular movie at the time, but it did not have much of an afterlife because of like Nothing Lasts Forever, because of music rights. It was I did think it was on VHS, but it's never been on DVD or Blu-ray in the US because of the music. And it is it's a brilliant, well, I don't want to say it's brilliant. It's a very interesting, it's a very, very dark, depressing movie. And Diane Keaton is really good in it. So if you can find it, I recommend checking it out. And it does, sort of elevate the sketch a bit if you've seen it.
Yeah, I think this is a very good example of what SNL does so well. Like this smart commentary on something, just to position as far on the other side as they can. Like this subject matter of this movie with toys for little girls, and of course you get Gilda to play the little girl. So I think like the writing which I believe this is an Ann Beats piece. The writing, at least the idea, I think is really, really good. It's funny, you mentioned Gary. Yeah, she's kissing with the dolls, but it's like 6-year-old like banging the dolls together to kiss, and then she goes back and finds the second guy who's going to kill her. And I just thought it was part of me near the end. I was wondering if they didn't know where to go with it at the end. As you said, it's a commercial, and it's the voiceover. What was the tag at the end? Like bringing gratuitous sex and violence at home to your little girl, or something like that. Or it was, yes. And of course, the best tag of all, it's from Mainway, which was funny, especially with Bill's delivery.
It brings gratuitous sex and random violence into her little world.
But it's a great way to make a commentary on that movie, is make it a commercial, little kid, find a way to get Gil to play the little girl, which, like you said, she's great at. And it was good.
Yeah, I thought this was great. I thought it was a great last sketch. Unfortunately, I wish we had.
I thought it was a great way to end the show, but sadly,
well, we get who I believe is Brad's favorite voice from the 70s, because he keeps telling us how wonderful Art Garfunkel is. Comes out and sings "Crying in My Sleep." That was for the song?
Remember in the beginning, we were like, if you start with a deep sigh, we know where you're going. No, I mean, I don't think it's that hard to imagine. This was the lead track from this current album, which did not chart, which thus forced them to record a Sam Cooke version and re-release the album. It's at this point where I'm like, I would have rather seen him in a sketch or two. Like, we didn't need another song. He was good in the only 2 sketches he was in. I would have much preferred an Art Garfunkel sketch.
Absolutely. I mean, he sang 4 songs tonight. I think he could have sang 2. We didn't need this song. We didn't need Scarborough Fair again.
Seen it.
Yeah. So he would have been good in another sketch. Because like you said, he didn't have a heavy lift in either of the sketches he was in, but he was fine. He was decent.
Yeah.
It was all right, but I agree. Another sketch would have been nice. It's a little too much Art Garfunkel music, but I don't know. That was sort of the makeup of the show early on, and they were just sort of phasing out of that at this point.
It's tough when you have a musician as a host who clearly wants to sing and perform, because that's what they do,
and you also then have a musical guest. Like Ray Charles made a little bit of sense because he didn't have a musical guest. So, of course, he had to fill some time playing some songs. Makes total sense.
Right. Even Paul Simon, his first time, right? Ton of Paul Simon.
Yeah,
that's a
it was just all music.
Horse of a different color. Yeah. And a really great basketball sketch. Pre-tape. But yeah, I feel like this was just too much Garfunkel, which was exactly how Paul Simon felt around this time. So I'm starting to understand Paul Simon more and more.
But like I said at the top, despite the host not being in that many sketches and the musical performances being a bit under-inspired, I still think this is a decent show. I liked it. I enjoyed this episode. I'm the only one.
I like the end of the show. From Looks at Books, Don't Look Back at Anger, Andy Kaufman, and then the Looking for Mr. Goodbar playset. I enjoyed all of that. I didn't enjoy all of the singing. I thought the beginning of the show was pretty weak. So
that's where we differ, because I thought Modern Crimes was a really good opening. I liked The Tomorrow Show. I thought it was funny. And the Kiss concert thing was decent. So
yeah,
I enjoyed the top half more than you.
Mike, what's your feelings on this show?
Do we turn?
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way. The last half definitely has a bunch of classic bits for me. I think overall it's a good, like as a whole show, it doesn't really gel, but it just has a bunch of really classic elements. It's got the Don't Look Back in Anger, Andy Kaufman, Looking for Mr. Goodbar. The Loopners I thought was good. I keep calling it the Loopners, the Nerds. It was just one Loopner. The Weekend Update. I mean, we got the Kiss. I like the Kiss stage door a lot. And then it's just too much music.
Yeah.
But I feel like the writing too, for the most part, maybe the Chicago sketch aside, I thought the writing on whole was really good. Every other sketch I thought was written really well. There's no dialogue in the cold open, but just the writing of that sketch I thought was really great.
Yeah.
And like you said, and all the stuff you said in the last half, including, Andy Kaufman writing his own bit, just feel like the writing was a really good writing episode.
Well, I think, Brad, you sold me on it being stronger than I thought coming into it. So good job. Kudos.
Thank you. Happy to help.
Well, Michael, how about your best bits for this episode?
Obviously, Don't Look Back in Anger. And then I don't know. I like the Kiss stage door. I don't know. How many do I get to pick?
Many as you want.
I like the Mr. Goodbar. That Tom Snyder was all right. I'd have to go with Don't Look Back in Anger. There's a lot.
See, there's a lot of good stuff. Exactly. When you sit and think about it, there's good stuff.
It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least five that I thought were great.
Wow.
Kiss stage door. Don't Look Back in Anger. Andy Kaufman, Mr. Goodbar, and Looks at Books.
All right, Brad, how about you? What are your best bits?
I had 3. I had obviously Don't Look Back in Anger. I thought Andy Kaufman's bit was phenomenal. And I loved the Tomorrow Show. I thought the writing of it was great in the performance. So I had those 3.
All right. I mean, I should have just said we don't even have to talk about Don't Look Back in Anger because I think we all agree. But yes, we all agree on that. I agree with the Andy Kaufman bit from same as you, Brad. I love that. I thought it was brilliant. And I really loved Looks at Books too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying this has got to be one of our most bidded episodes. Like
we've bidded. That's what we're going with. Bidded.
I don't know. I failed English.
One of the two of you wrote a book and it wasn't you. Oh, Michael, thank you.
Speaking of which, thank you, Michael. And I was going to say, yes, thanks for coming, and tell people where they can find the book or anything you've got going on, please.
You can find the book is still in print. It's you can find it on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, wherever. And they put out, my publisher put out a hardcover version, I guess like a year ago. And me and Tom signed a bunch of book plates. So if you have the book and you want it signed by me and Tom Schiller himself, you can reach out to me. I don't know how you can find me, but find me and I will send you a signed book plate.
That's great.
It can't be that hard because I found them and I got my signed book plate. So if I can do it, anybody can.
It's true. Well, Michael, thank you for doing this with us.
Thanks so much. This was awesome.
Yeah, this was great. Next week, we're going to be talking about season 3, episode 14 with host The Return of Jill Clayburgh.
Oh, your girl's back.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
And musical guest Eddie Money. Looking forward to that. Until then, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
The Not Ready for Primetime podcast is a 2 Pints Productions production. Produced and edited by Brad and Gary. Thought about by Brad and Gary. Please rate and review. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.